Breaking tonight, ugly new fallout after Brandeis University bows to pressure from Muslim groups and others and abruptly yanks an honor for an outspoken advocate of women's rights in the Muslim community. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Ayaan Hirsi Ali is a Somali-born woman, now an American citizen, known for her support of advancing women's rights worldwide, and specifically her harsh criticism of the treatment of women within some Islamic societies. She was personally subjected to genital mutilation. She had to flee a forced marriage and is still receiving death threats for speaking out against these practices in some Islamic countries. She recently received attention for her work on the film Honor Diaries. That's a documentary that tries to shine a light on this kind of violence against Muslim women.
By law, they have the power to stop you from leaving the house, from working, from choosing your own mate.
Brandeis University was prepared to give Ms. Ali an honorary degree and have her speak at graduation. But the school yesterday withdrew the offer suddenly, under pressure from Ms. Ali's detractors who call her an Islamophobe. Ms. Ali is here, and she will join me live in a moment. But first, one of the groups leading the successful effort against her is the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR. I spoke with Ibrahim Hooper, CAIR's communications director, just before we came to air. Mr. Hooper, thank you for being here. So
Thanks for having me.
Why would you oppose recognition of a speaker who is attempting to call attention to women's rights in the Muslim world?
Well, first of all, she doesn't do just that. She says that Islam itself has to be defeated, not radical Islam. As she says, Islam, period, must be defeated. She says that Muslim schools in America should be shut down, that the Constitution should be changed so that Muslims in America don't have civil liberties.
Here's my question for you, because I see your point. She's been critical of Islam, of Muslims in general. I understand.
Yeah.
So if she had limited her criticism to radical Islam, to radicalize Muslims, would you have felt differently?
Well, first of all, this isn't a First Amendment issue. She speaks all the time. She just spoke in Canada. She speaks all over the place, and we don't say boo about it. But when a prestigious university like Brandeis is about to honor her and, in fact, endorse her views, that's when we speak out. And you'll notice that Brandeis and the professors and the interfaith community and the students all agreed she wasn't the right person to receive an honor.
That's not true. There's actually been considerable pushback, and it continues tonight.
There's been a couple
yes, there
people,
has, and
but
we'll get to that later.
Majority of
let me ask you this, sir. Let me ask you, sir, because you say that when the criticism that when she has spoken out in the past, you haven't said boo. But that's not exactly true, Mr. Hooper, because as we showed in the introduction, she was featured in a documentary called Honor Diaries, and your group has been pushing.
Our objection to the Honor Diaries
May I finish my question, and then I'll give you the floor.
Well, I know exactly what you're saying, because I've watched the previous segments.
But the audience doesn't. Your group has been pushing to shut down screenings of that film, which was featured at the Geneva Convention on Human Rights. Excuse me, Mr. Hooper, let me finish the question, and then I'll give you the floor, okay? You have been pushing to shut down those screenings. So it's not exactly true that you don't say boo when she speaks out in other forums.
It had nothing to do with her being in the film. Actually, it has a lot to do with her being the executive producer and therefore showing what this film is really all about. It's about demonizing Islam and marginalizing American Muslims. As you read on your previous segment, we condemn female genital mutilation. We condemn honor killings. We condemn any kind of abuse of Muslims, women, or women anywhere in the world. We're on the record clearly on that. That's not what this is about. It's about hijacking a legitimate issue in order to demonize Islam and marginalize Muslims, and that's what it's about.
Okay, but sir, the response to your push, your group's push, to silence that film, which features her among other Muslim women talking about their own experience.
She's the executive producer of the film.
Let me finish. I've done you the courtesy. I appreciate the same. So what I'm saying is, you claim that you don't like the group behind that film. I understand you don't like the messenger. Why not allow the message to be heard? It's the same question in both cases.
Because the message of that film is hate Muslims, hate Islam. That's what it's designed to do. If you go to the Clarion Fund's website, it's a sewer of anti-Muslim hate. That's what they're about.
But now you're back on the messenger.
Well, you have to see who the messenger is to determine what the real agenda is of their message.
Do you? Or does the film stand on its own or fall on its own? You're trying to stop the message from being heard.
If you'd had neo-Nazis doing a film about the Jewish community, I think you'd say, hey, I suspect their motives here.
Well, I understand. I mean, you say tonight that you call this a victory over hate, that Brandeis University has withdrawn this offer. Yeah. You call this woman an extremist. You call Ms. Ali a bigot and claim you don't like hateful extremists. However, your critics point out that may not be entirely true. There are a couple of instances. Number one, after 9/11, immediately after 9/11, excuse me, Mr.
I thought you didn't want to
I'm going to give you the forum, sir. I'm going to give you the chance to respond, okay? That's what we do here. You've had these criticisms come on our show, on the air, and in many other settings, and I want to give you the chance to respond.
Yeah, on your hate sites all over the internet.
Okay, I know. Everything's a hate site if it doesn't come from you. Your critics say that you refused to condemn Osama bin Laden right after the 9/11 attacks when you were given the chance to do so. That's on Salon.com, knowing he was a terrorist at the time. No. You've refused to denounce Hamas. You told the Washington Post it's not our job to go around denouncing.
We have condemned Hamas. We've condemned every Hezbollah. We've condemned FARC. We've condemned every organization that's on the list of terrorists designated by the U.S. government. But again,
why did you tell the Washington Post you wouldn't condemn Hamas?
You claim that you don't want to attack the messenger, yet this is what happens every time a Muslim comes on. You start this game playing. CARE has a 20-year public record. 20 years.
Sir,
we've been one of the most public organizations in the country. If you have something specific that we have said or done in 20 years of putting our message out there, please tell me.
Okay, sir.
What is it that we have said or done that you object to?
You just
we defend
excuse
the
me. Now it's my turn.
On a daily basis.
Sir, you just told me that the messenger matters. You just made that point. I'm giving you that. If the messenger matters, then CARE matters. And CARE, according to U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer, excuse me, Mr. Hooper. And that was just part one. Tomorrow you will see how Mr. Hooper responded when challenged about CARE's tactics for attacking some of its critics. And we'll have a little discussion about the criticism that they have faced. We also asked to speak with Brandeis University President Frederick M. Lawrence, shown here. The school refused to make anyone available. Our offer still stands. But right now, we are joined by the woman at the center of all of this. Ayaan Hirsi Ali is a fellow at the Belfer Center for the Future of Diplomacy at the Harvard Kennedy School, and my guest now. It's very good of you to be here. Thank you very much, ma'am. First, can I get your reaction to that exchange that I just had with Mr. Hooper?
Well, first of all, Megan, I really do appreciate. I want to say kudos for calling Mr. Hooper out on all of these things. Boo is very gentle, but for the last 12 years, I have systematically been condemned by Muslim individuals, Muslim organizations, relatives. Any time that I bring up the treatment of women in Islam or the link between violence and violence justified in the name of Islam. It's Muslims who commit violence, either against women or others, who bring the Quran and the Hadith and the core texts on the table. And every time I say, hey, it's important that we talk about this. I was brought up in the religion of Islam. It is my father and my mother's morality. I understand the risk. Let's talk about it. You have people like this organization, CARE, and Mr. Hooper, who deny this. And frankly, I don't think that Mr. Hooper speaks for Muslims. I don't think that he speaks for Muslim women, because as you see in the film Honor Diaries, and as you see in the general news, there is a lot of violence going on in Muslim countries and amongst Muslims as immigrants in Western countries. And that should be addressed. I don't think they are the right people to do it. I think we are the right people to do it.
But let me ask you this, because what he was saying and what Brandeis University used as its excuse to pull your honorary degree and boot you out of the commencement ceremony was other statements. They claim you've been too general in your criticisms of Muslims and of Islam, claiming that you've said violence is inherent in Islam, Islam is the new fascism, it's a destructive cult of death. They claim at Brandeis University those statements were a bridge too far.
I have given numerous interviews on the subject of Islam, Islam in the West, Islam and women, Islam and violence in the past 12 years. What these students have done, and which they do, I'm absolutely used to it, is they take lines from various interviews. I mean, the Reason magazine was in 2007, and then they tie all these things together to fit their own narrative. What the Muslim organizations and the student protest groups have done, that doesn't surprise me. I'm used to it. Everywhere I go, every single time I do a public speaking, I meet with some form of protest along those lines. What surprised me is the decision by Brandeis, first to say, you know, we want to give you this honor, we know what you do, and in the age of Google, all of that is out there. It's all public. And to come around and say we really didn't know some of these things, I think it's a very feeble excuse. But I don't want this to distract us from what I wanted to say during that commencement, which was to tell these students how incredibly privileged they are, and especially the female students amongst them, that they are growing up in a world that is free, where they have proper education, and that the way to get to a better world, a world of peace, is to get the ability as young people to learn how to think critically. And I know that my presence for the Muslim students in Brandeis and other universities is offensive. It's maybe, whatever they call it, insulting, sometimes they call it, it is controversial. But I thought that's exactly what universities are for. We send our kids to school so that they can be confronted with ideas that they're not comfortable with. Do
you feel that Brandeis is engaging in a double standard, because they have given honorary degrees to some controversial figures, including Tony Kushner and others, and they, you know, people have pushed back against them for making some comments that have been perceived as anti-Jewish, and yet there was no problem. They gave them degrees and not you. Moreover, you know, Ahmadinejad went and spoke at Columbia University. I don't remember CARE objecting to that.
I think if you insult Jews in this country, if you insult Christians in this country, if you insult Mormons, I've watched the Book of Mormon, you will get people who will write to you about their outrage. But there's always this fear that if you insult Muslims, there's going to be some kind of violent repercussion. And that may have been part of the decision to do that, but they're not doing their students any favors, and they're not doing their Muslim students any favors, because to really be assimilated into American society, to become American, is to accept the idea that you can have a robust debate, and there's no other place better to do that than on university campuses. And the decision of the Brandeis University is really regrettable. It makes me sad.
Well, Mr. Hooper and I got into it about what our First Amendment really stands for, and whether it's about shutting down speech or allowing it. That part will air tomorrow night. You're a brave woman. I know you've been threatened specifically with death a number of times. It's outrageous. And we appreciate you and your courage in coming on the broadcast tonight.
Thank you, Megan.
All the best to you.
Thank you very much.
Unbelievable. We're taking your thoughts on it. Follow me on Twitter at Megyn Kelly, and go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Kelly File. Let me know what you think.